New York City, one of the most visited and most desirable city break locations on the planet. A hive of bustling activity, iconic sights and attractions, and some incredible dining. A city synonymous with America and one seared into the consciousness of anyone who has grown up with even a slight interest in popular culture. Whether it's movies, TV, music, art or culture, New York has had a hand in shaping them all, making a visit to this incredible city a lifetime goal for literally millions of people. We love the place and make sure we visit as often as we can, but we can't help but notice it's getting a little pricey. And that is the understatement of the century. So we hatched a plan of seeing just how cheaply we could visit the city, settling on a budget of £1,000 for a full trip to the city that never sleeps. And that's for everything. Flights, hotels, food, attractions, transport, even coffee. It's going to be tight, but we think it's possible. So come along as we see if we can visit New York City for less than £1,000 per person. And if so, whether you should, or if penny pinching all the time just ruins the whole experience. Anyway, welcome to the first of our challenge series videos. Hello and welcome to the first of our New York City £1,000 budget challenge series videos. This may end up being the most boring of the series as we need to take a look at the planning phase. This is not that exciting, but it will be necessary if we want to meet the £1,000 budget set out in our challenge. That budget is £1,000 for a trip to New York City from the United Kingdom for two persons travelling together as a couple. So £2,000 in total. With flights from the UK averaging £500 per person and hotels in New York from £200 to £300 a night for budget options, it's going to be a really tight budget. But we also don't want to do the budget just for the sake of it. We still want to have a great time, so we've set out a few rules to help us make sure we still get an amazing trip. First of all, flights. We want to have some pretty reasonable flights without huge layovers or multiple stops. We know we're not going to be able to fly direct, but we still want a pretty reasonable flight time. The second rule is no cheating. We've been in the industry a long time and we have lots of ways of getting cheaper flights, free hotels or stuff thrown in, but there's no point in doing that. We want our trip to be available to anyone else who wants to copy us, so you can do your own 1,000 budget challenge. Next up, the hotel. We're not going to be staying in some flea-ridden motel out in the sticks miles away from the action. We want a decent hotel and we want it to be right in the heart of the action. Attractions. There's loads to see in New York for free. You can visit Central Park, walk to Dumbo. There's so much to do. The entire city is basically an attraction all by itself. But we still want to do some paid attractions. The cool stuff like the observation towers or museums. There's so much to see and do in New York. We can't miss out on these amazing world-class attractions. We even want to try and fit in a musical, but that might be a bit of a stretch. Food and drink. We're not going to starve ourselves. We want to make sure we eat properly while we're in the city. And also, New York is full of iconic foods that we want to make sure we try on the trip. We have a whole list of these and we want to make sure we tick off as many as possible. And as we're British, we want to make sure we have at least one alcoholic drink per day. And finally, duration. This is a long flight, so we want to make sure it's worth the trip. So we're going to stay for 5 nights in the city. Unfortunately, despite our rules, there are still going to be some compromises. It's such a tight budget, we're not going to get away with doing whatever we want in the city. For one, we're going to have to go in low season. We chose to go in January, just after Christmas, when the city is about as quiet as it gets, but we are risking some pretty extreme weather during those months. Hotel. Again, while we're not going to compromise completely, we might have to go a couple of levels lower than we would usually like when staying in the city. Flights are going to be compromised. We're not going to be flying in upper class and we're not going to be able to travel direct, but we're still going to get a pretty decent flight, hopefully. Shopping is going to be out. We're not going to be able to fit in any shopping on our £1,000 budget, but if you would like to do a £1,000 budget and do some shopping, just have an extra separate budget on top of that. High-end attractions are going to be out. Helicopter rides, sports tickets, or the high-end shows. Anything that costs a couple $100 per attraction is not going to fit in this budget. Likewise, dining, we're going to be at the bottom end of the dining options. We're not going to be able to go to Le Bernardin or any Michelin-starred restaurants. We're going to have to keep it cheap, but that doesn't mean we're going to miss out. But other than these compromises and making sure we do a lot of free activities while we're there, we're going to have an amazing trip. New York is a great city, and even on this budget, we're going to have an amazing time. Hello and welcome to sunny Lisbon and our pretty swanky apartment. Our search for flights set us on a path that opened up some really great budget flight options. The cheapest option that kept popping up was TAP Air, Portugal's flag-carrying airline. These flights were coming in at only £287 each, a bit of a bargain. This was from Manchester, our home airport, to New York with a short 2 to 3 hour layover in Lisbon. This was not ideal, but at the price point would really help the £1,000 challenge get off to a flyer. However, this is what brings us to Lisbon. For the same price, we could have a free day layover in Lisbon, so we decided to go for that. Now, strictly speaking, this is not going to allow us to hit the budget, as with the hotel and food, it's going to rack up. But we could have skipped the layover and headed straight to New York City for the same price, so this still counts in our book. We are just adding on an additional extra that we didn't need to. There are several of these airlines offering these kinds of bonus layover flights, including Iceland Air and Play Airlines, flying into Reykjavik. But TAP Air was definitely coming out the cheapest, but these bonus layover flights are really worth considering for budget travellers, so we wanted to mention it as these 2-in-1 destination flights are really great value. And this is a budget video, and we had an amazing time in Lisbon and have details of that coming up soon. As for extras, this was a real no-frills flight. No checked bag, no seat selection, no in-flight drinks, although there is a meal on the transatlantic legs. Adding these extras risked blowing the budget, so we went bare bones, only able to assign seats 36 hours before the flight. A big gamble, but this would be a great start to our budget trip planning. Due to the low season, we were getting some really good hotel prices for New York, but even the lower end were coming up a little bit hot. There were a few at the £500 to £600 mark, and the odd one getting down to £400, but this being a bit basic for our liking. Shared bathrooms? No thank you. However, we do have access to a new booking portal with one of our partners, and this was coming back with some excellent options, quite a bit cheaper than even Booking.com or Expedia. The one that stood out was the well-renowned Edison Hotel. This came back at a spiky £744 on Booking.com for 5 nights. But in our own booking platform, it was a mere £586 and threw in a load of cool perks such as breakfast, wine hours, and $0 resort fee, which is most of the saving. So we locked in this rate of £293 per person, bringing our total to £580 per person for flights and hotel. The challenge was on. We said all rates and prices must be available to all travellers, and then we went on to say we've booked using our own special platform. So have we broken a rule by accessing prices that the general public can't? Well, no. We said our prices have to be available to everybody, but what we actually mean is they have to be available to everybody who watches this video, which means you can access these prices. As we are Fora travel advisors, we are happy to arrange comparable travel options for you. Obviously, we went in the depths of January, so our prices were really low, but we will be able to get competitive rates any time of the year, along with extra perks such as free breakfasts, room upgrades, early check-ins or late checkouts. We are happy to provide a no-obligation free quote, so check the links above or down in the description and head on over to our site, fill out the form, and we'll get back to you with some amazing prices on New York hotels. Next up, attractions, or things to do, and this is an easy one. We have been saving on New York attractions for years, ever since our first visit spawned our blog and YouTube channel. The simple solution is to use attraction passes. For this trip, we plan to use the Go City New York Explorer Pass. This is a great value option, where you choose the number of attractions and can then use them whenever you like on your trip. The all-inclusive options are great, but they will be too costly for a trip of this extreme budget. We bagged a 6-attraction pass for £133 per person, including our discount code, which you will find in the description below, taking our new total to £713, and mere £287 remaining in our budget. From here on in, everything is going to be in dollars, so it makes sense to convert. At the time we converted, we got a rate of 1.27, giving us $365. This got a little worse the closer we got, but we had already changed the currency at the higher rate, and we will mostly be using cash as it helps us keep track. The final consideration is the transport. We were flying into Newark Airport, and the cheapest way out of there is on the bus, but we don't do buses. The New Jersey Transit train is comparable and much cheaper than an Uber or a taxi, and can be faster depending on the traffic. At only $33 for a return trip, including the air train fee, it's a bargain. Finally, getting around the city will be done on the fantastic New York Metro, most prominently the subway system. A week-long Metro card is only $34. This leaves us $299 for food and drinks for the 5-night adventure. That's a tiny budget, especially when a McDonald's meal comes in around $30 nowadays, but we still have 99-cent pizza stores to get us through the trip. With the planning stage over, it's on to the real adventure, as we are not doing this in theory, we are getting on the plane. So we'll see you over in the next video as we try out TAP Airlines on our flight out to the States. Make sure you like and subscribe so you can see when all of our videos drop as we execute our £1,000 5-night adventure to New York City. Thanks for watching.